Zerglings, morphing into orcs would work, but
No, I didn't either.
it's been a privilege working on.
I haven't actually watched
Zergorps.
this.
Hi, I'm Scott Johnson, the host of the World of Warcraft podcast, The Instance, and today I'm sitting here with Chris Metzen. Chris,
Scott, it's good to see you, man.
good to see you. How you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. It's a crazy time. We're about to launch The War Within and, really kick off this massive WorldSoul saga, which is a trip because, I haven't shipped a video game in, 8 or 9 years. So it's kind of wild going through this process again and just kind of feeling that anticipation, excited to see what people think. And when the product finally gets into people's hands, it's one of my favorite parts of the whole development process.
Well, let me ask you this question, because you reminded me of how long this has been going. I remember firing up the World of Warcraft OG, vanilla World of Warcraft, and seeing a trailer that said, celebrating 10 years of Warcraft. And I remember then thinking, you gotta be kidding me, that's insane. That's how long I've been playing these games. And now we're 20 years on top of that, 30 years total. That has to be a little overwhelming, especially given that you were here for most of that, had a bit of a break, now you're back. Does that weigh on you? Do you feel the heat from the time? Like, how do you feel about how that entire process has gone?
I don't feel kind of heat or like the weight of time, relative to expectation. It's really weird, being a little.
I mean, yeah, because he has.
Little old.
You have to consider they have like 20 years of the game to honor, like 20 years of development, 20 years of story, 20 years of characters, 20 years of people playing the game and loving it and being engrossed in the lore. Like, you have to honor all of that while also like building a path to the future. Like, it's a whole. It's crazy to think about. It's like when you're writing like a thing for like a Star Wars or something like that, or like Marvel, or like just like a big property. Like, or like if you're writing like something new in like Harry Potter or something like that, where it's like this huge beloved intellectual property, and you're writing like the next thing. People are gonna be like fucking hounding you all over it, like, because they're like, what about this thing? What about this thing? And that just like goes on forever. But if there's anyone that can do it, it's this guy.
Older, a little wiser. Feels like 100 years ago, feels like 5 minutes ago, all at the same time. So when I look at this WorldSoul saga, the stuff we're building right now, thankfully there's an immediacy of it all to me. It's just, we live and die by, how good, the things we're sculpting in real time is. Trying to hold it all in your head, the weight of the past, it's kind of beyond me. I can't really wrap my head around like all the history all at once.
It's so big.
There's kids graduating college right now named Jaina and Anduin. It's like,
yeah, literally.
I often find it's not all that helpful to overdwell on, in the course of development. You want to keep it focused on what you're doing at the time.
Yeah, it's a good way to think.
So that's how I try and balance it out. One day I'm sure I'll look back and go, wow. Working on this game again has really given me more of an immediate sense of gratification that just kind of keeps you focused in the moment.
That's what I mean. This zone's so pretty.
Generally,
like, look at
where my head is at on a day. Again has really given me more of an immediate
we've yet to get
sense
here.
of gratification that just kind of keeps.
Like, look at that. That looks nice. It's like a dwarven city. Like, that looks awesome.
In the moment, and that's
in the mountains.
Generally, where my head is at on a day-to-day basis.
When you mentioned people naming their kids after characters that you created, that you named, and that you developed and saw grow and evolve. And
kids named Thrall.
Something that's interesting about War Within so far, to me, is we're seeing the gang kind of back together in a much more complete way. So you're seeing Anduin talking to Thrall.
You're
with
seeing
Jaina
Thrall.
nearby,
Like, we're
Khadgar,
seeing all
my
these familiar characters. Like, we went through Shadowlands, which like had Sylvanas and Anduin, but they were like messed up. Like, the characters were there, but it was like all new lore. And then Dragonflight, which was like just the dragons, and like Rathian, and like even more new characters. So it's like we're getting back. Like, this is WoW. Anduin and Thrall. Thrall literally represents the past of Warcraft, like the history of WoW. This is literally the history, the past, and the future of WoW. Like,
Anduin talking to Thrall with Jaina nearby.
And Jaina is kind of like a bridge, because she was like she's been relevant in WoW, but she's also an older character. She's kind of like Thrall, but she's been like a bit more like relevant throughout. Kind of. It's hard to say. They're kind of like equal.
And Khadgar, my favorite
And then
worst wizard of
Khadgar,
all
who
time, but I love him.
I guess is
He's
dead.
there.
Like, is
We're all
Khadgar
there.
dead?
And what that
I
tells
guess
me
he's
is
dead.
that we're in for some coming together of a lot of strings, a lot of stuff that has been out there for 20 years that will finally converge
Yeah.
in some meaningful ways. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
I'll break it down. When I came back, I'm like, all right, let's go. World of Warcraft. Like, what do we got? What are we making? And they were.
What are we doing?
They had already been doing.
And they're like, we're fucking it all up. We've introduced this guy called the Jailer, who's actually been the villain this whole time, who we're just finding about now, who like literally everything has been a manipulation of him. And they're like, I don't know about that.
or within, or what would become.
And then the Metzen comes back and he's like, never mind all that. Because, like, if the WorldSoul Saga didn't happen, like, what would have been next after, like, Dragonflight and... Like, what would have been next after Dragonflight and Shadowlands? Like, would Dragonflight have happened, or would it be different? Would it be, like, even... Like, I can't even imagine.
War within for about 10 months. While I liked what they were building and thought it was, what are we making? And they were in, they had already been doing War Within, or what would become, War Within, for about 10 months. While I liked what they were building.
So
and
they've
thought it
already
was
been
a
working
cool
on War
next
Within for
chapter.
10 months when he came back. I don't know the timeline of when he came back in my head. I'd have to, like, rethink it. But that's interesting. That's interesting to know what a face I paused on.
In WoW. In my head, I'm like, for the 20th anniversary of WoW, like, I want to have a feeling, like, whatever the product becomes, I want to have a feeling of pulling all the toys out of the toy box.
Yes.
Right? These, like, older characters, the kind of macro themes that, the series has been about all these years. Titan.
That's what I said. I remember I, like, had, like, a little... I had... This was my whole thought, like, going to, like,
gods, light and
what's
dark.
coming after Dragonflight. I'm like, okay, it's the 20 years of WoW. It's got to be something, like, big. Like, it has to be... And I'm glad he's thinking this way. Because, like, this is a similar way that I was thinking. Where it's, like, literally about the world. I had, like, a fucking post, like, on Discord that I said where, like, that we were just talking about, like, the future of the expansions. Where it was basically, like, more or less the WorldSoul Saga. Like, I was like, I want to focus on Azeroth's WorldSoul. Where, like, all the fucking, like, the forces, the cosmic forces of the fucking WoWverse come after the WorldSoul. And then, like, Light and Void happen. And so it's all... I mean, not that that's, like, crazy to theorize about. That's all kind of, like, stuff that's, like, we've assumed will happen. But it's just, like, it's just kind of funny that, like, oh, it is happening. Like, instead of something, like, crazy different. It's just nice.
I wanted to feel like the anniversary was capturing, like this kind of mix of all of the core flavors.
Yeah.
And ultimately proofing out that there has been this storyline all the way through, that everything kind of converges into this crescendo. And in a very real way.
I love that crescendo, because it's going to be fucking crazy and epic, and it's going to be like, we're not ready. We're just not ready. We're not ready at all.
The War Within was shaping up. They're like, yeah, dude, like there's no way on earth, right? That that's going to divert the course of mighty rivers. There's no way to get that done on top of what we're already in production on. So that begat this idea of a larger saga. I'm like, okay, well, what if we can get there in X number of steps? What if we can build to something just ridiculous?
Interesting.
But it might take
So it
a
wasn't...
couple expansions to do.
So it wasn't like a saga at first. They were like, we're just going to do it. It'll just be the next expansion. Because every expansion's always been like its own thing. They've like tied together, but never really in such a way as they will now. So that's interesting. They kind of pivoted on that idea.
And somehow folks, bought in on it. Like, whoa, that's wild. Let's go. And so Taryn Gregory and I, Taryn's our principal story developer. So we work together every day, and we talk a lot about, like, we want to involve all these epic characters, but, like, when they're in the scene, they eat all the oxygen, and they could just go off and solve for X. So it's this balance between including all these mega characters and then finding clever ways to get them out of the way, so that
Yeah,
the player
that's
has
a good
maximum
point.
agency. And
Because there's so many like important, huge characters, like, and they're like, why don't they just solve all the problems? Well, it's like, well, it's also we got to do stuff, the heroes. So
newer characters we're introducing have space to breathe and live.
It sounds like it is almost an advantage to come to something that had already been started. If you'd come to the end of Dragonflight and started from there, that's a little big. It's a bigger buy. It's like, well, wait a minute, where are we going now? We've been flying. Okay, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What do we do? And instead, you were presented with some beginnings, and then you got to decide where those beginnings took you.
And vector it a little bit. The trick to, after all these years, creative direction, which even today I don't know that I could do a thesis on, right? Creative direction is as unique as the person doing it and the chemistry of the team that you're working with. But kind of finding that balance again of having strong ideas and kind of saying, like, I want to go this way, right? But the team had already been, kind of constructing this thing. So it's a mix of maximizing kind of the things that they are most passionate about, the ideas that they're kind of dug in on, and finding a way to bend everything towards a singular purpose, but boosting their sense of ownership.
So when you got up on stage at BlizzCon, it was pretty magical for players. I can
that was
say
one
for
of the
myself and a lot of
best
people
moments. Like when he got up on
that I
stage at
know,
BlizzCon
and a lot of fans of the magical
and
for
talked
players.
about the WorldSoul Saga. This was like, it's hard to explain how like gratifying it was as someone who's played WoW for so long and like gives a shit about the story and him being like, we care about the story. We want the story to be like a big deal. Like, it was it was amazing. Like, it was just awesome.
I can say that for myself and a lot of people.
Instead of this them being like, here's the next expansion, it's gonna be blah 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 blah. It was like they had passion. It was just awesome.
That I know, and a lot of fans of the game saw this as a return to something.
Yeah,
And
it felt like coming home. It literally felt like coming home.
I think we're coming off an excellent expansion in Dragonflight, but you got up and did
Dragonflight
something that
was awesome.
surprised everybody, which was, we're not doing the normal, here comes the next expansion, here are the features, here's the storyline in its basic way. We
Yeah.
are going to do a trilogy of
So
essentially
here's the
games.
next 3 expansions, which was crazy because they've never done that. Like, it's always been, here's the next one, here's everything about it. Who knows what the next one will be? Like, the one after that, they had a vision. It was everything.
You spoke a lot about bringing, tying up some loose ends, but also creating
Shaping
a
the future.
saga that is 3 parts, at least, and setting up really the next 20 years of the game, perhaps.
Yep.
That's very different.
That's why I think at the end of Last Titan, we are like rebooting. The Titans are going to want to come back and re-originate the planet. We're going to stop them, but we're going to fix the planet. Like, we're going to like fucks with it. They're going to be like, we figured out how to re-originate the planet without wiping out all life or something. So that's how they're going to update the world. It'll be at the end of Last Titan. We're going to do it. Or like maybe Azeroth herself will like awaken and the planet will wake up that way. Probably like one of those two. That's what I would imagine. Azeroth's going to wake up and that's going to make changes, but we'll see. Let's keep
And
watching.
what any of you have done up to this point, did that present unique challenges to the way you wanted to create story, the way you wanted your characters to progress, these sorts of things?
Yeah, it created all sorts of complexities. Under the hood a little bit, it's interesting in how when I came back on the team, the development process and even the conceptualizing
What is this?
process,
Oh,
like
that's-
where does the expansion take place? What are the main
Dragonflight.
themes? What's the focus? Really had become much more democratized, right? And people were, had kind of found their voice in the balance of all the special teams that comprise the World of Warcraft team. They'd really built the vision of Dragonflight together. So as I came back in, woohoo, and there were folks going like, oh wow, how is this going to change our dynamic? In terms of being a creative director, like will we still
Interesting.
have a voice?
People were
Will we
worried that they
still,
would like have to give up.
have stakes in how this all shapes
Yeah.
out. So
some like
I was
say.
saying earlier, kind of learning that again and learning that balance again, and coming in as creative director and be like, no, I'm not here to be, hyper prescriptive with everything as I might have been as a younger dude. But
like he's not maybe here to be the boss, but he's here to be like the leader. He's here to be like the visionary, the guider, the guy who shapes everything, the guy who like the shepherd.
like really listening for the team's instincts. Like what are they responding to? What do they want to build? What do the artists want to make? What are they imagining in terms of that pure vision? So on top of that, the complexity of, I don't think this gives up the ghost on anything. Like we're building 3 of these at a time. This is, I'll say it. It's insane. It's insane,
Yeah,
right?
they're working on 3 at the same time.
On top of the team, over a year ago, having committed to like an 8-week cadence.
Yeah.
So these folks we are moving so fast, and so the difference here is, guys like Taryn and I have to map out where we're going like way
Well in
ahead
advance,
of the
yeah.
caravan, which is its own really interesting kind of work, right? Checking in with everybody.
Well, that probably helps because it helps them like build a strong vision, and if you just like know where that's going, then you can figure out all the like the fine details and
feel
stuff.
cool, everybody hip, I want to make sure that we're building things that, not only, again, my instinct feels are cool and fun, but that the team is proud to build and that they feel they have a voice in and, can express themselves through where the story's going, what the ideas are. We're already mapping out, whatever, 13.1 and 13.2 and how they actually play out and connect, and it's wild. But in a way, you get to step back and see a far more cohesive vision and a far more refined idea over time. So, and without,
Love it.
again, without, spilling any beans, it's like, we're already talking about, the next few, post, upwards of like 17. Yeah. And it's just keeping the conveyor belt going.
That's crazy. So they're already talking for like 5-6 expansions from now. That's crazy. WoW's gonna go on and fucking on. WoW is not going anywhere. All these people are like, WoW is dead. Okay, I'll see you in 2034. Like,
it's like we're loud and clear. The fans want more content, more regularly. So, in a way, just staying ahead of that curve and making sure that everything, again, is of purpose and telling this much longer story.
yeah, the players are
It's been a
ravenous
blast.
too.
The pure creative on Warcraft, for the past year and a half has been, how would I put it?
Crazy.
Over such a long span of time. I want to say it's one of the most nuclear creative phases I've seen for Warcraft. But the pace is wild. Right, like the pace is wild, and it's like I ain't 30 anymore, so we joke around all the time, like, we need to start instituting, company naps in the middle of the afternoon for the old folks. But it has been pretty amazing.
That's a great way of
It has
thinking
been
about
pretty
it.
amazing.
Speaking
It's
of
been
personal
amazing to
connections,
see.
characters, and story, somebody close to you, who I think is a very wise human, once said, online somewhere, that Chris is Anduin in some ways, kind of worn out, beaten up by a straight period of like nonstop work, right? But also on the other end of it, he's a little bit back to being Thrall again. Mm-hmm. And those two characters represent these two parts of who this person is. How much of these characters moving forward or even in the past have represented you where you were in your life? Like some people.
This is interesting because I really relate to Anduin as a character. So I'm interested to see like where Anduin comes from, like in his mind.
People say, well, the early versions of these characters they were so metal. Like
yeah, I mean, Thrall was like he's an orc slave who rebelled and like led the orcs to freedom. Anduin was like a little kid who became king regent or king because his father went missing, and he was like super powerful in the light, like went to Pandaria, fought with Garrosh, like
even Tauren chieftains. They look like, these metal dudes and everything. And now they're aging, right? They're maturing. They're moving on in the world, like you are, like everyone who's worked on this does. Like that's time. Do you think that's a fair thing to say, that we'll see these characters change and evolve in the same way that maybe you have, and And they're kind of
Absolutely.
your avatars.
Yeah, no, I know where you're going. So there's kind of an A and a B there. Like the B, which is easier, is certainly we want to push these characters forward. We want to show some aging. We are currently doing that. But yeah, we talk about that a lot. There are many new characters over the arc of the saga that we don't want to be just one-off. We want them to be, you know, pals and you know, working together to, you know, solve these big problems. But certainly the characters that have been around a while, we're trying to kind of find a way to like capture that age up, not necessarily age out, but like, okay, so in that cinematic at BlizzCon, you know, they went in and put like gray streaks in Thrall's hair. I'm like, oh,
It looked great.
it got me. It's like, whoa.
Right,
And just
Thrall's getting
Anduin,
old.
you know, staring you down. It's like our little boys all grows
Yeah.
up. You know, it's
You feel for him. You're supposed to feel for him, right?
which was the point. But just the idea that these characters are moving through their own continuum and progressing and moving through stuff. Like, what a trip! You know, looking back from where we started.
Yeah, like when you look at Anduin, you literally
You
see
to the point
the
where
little
these are
kid
you
in
know, fairly
Stormwind.
fully realized characters within this.
You look at Anduin, you see the little kid in Stormwind who was like, "Greetings, citizen. Have you heard news of my father?" And now he's like fucking like photorealistic, like traumatized, like fucking depressed, like
Great.
It got me.
human.
It's
Like it's crazy.
you know, looking back from where we started, you know, to the point where these are, you know, fairly fully realized characters within this setting, and it's just incredibly satisfying that way to see that progression. And certainly us as storytellers, as people, you know, as we, you know, it's not necessarily, it is certainly getting older, but it's also just experience over time. You know, big life moments, becoming parents, you know, finding love, finding your career, all these big kind of life, you know, hurdles. It's like, you know, I tell folks all the time, like, don't be afraid to pour yourself into this stuff. You know, even when you're like, oh God, well, the
Yeah,
people
you
down the
can
hall dig
see it
you know, well,
reflected in the game, like things people have been through. Like you can tell.
will I be judged? Like, yes, probably. But the answer is you're an artist. Go get it. Right.
But that's part of it. Like you want to bring your life experience, and because that's how you can capture people. You can get them to relate.
Find your truth. Because often when, you know, we're pulling from a place of like deeply personal experience, someone's going to feel that on the other end. On the
Yeah,
other end of the
exactly.
line.
Like they're gonna relate, and it'll resonate even harder.
You know, as you're playing the game, it's like some of those themes that really matter. Whether you're a writer, quest designer, narrative folks, cinematics, you know, like the game design, you know, like everyone kind of pours themselves into their craft, and the more genuine that is, and I think sometimes the more risk you take, I think you get more genuinely affecting content. I think people feel that.
Absolutely.
They feel you in it one way or another. There are many themes embedded in the WorldSoul saga, evidenced by different characters, that are very pointedly things that I think today, or I'm struggling with today, for sure. But again, I think about it in terms of like, as the team's creative leader, that's not the job as much. I often think the job is like trying to learn to call them out, you know, and challenge them to kind of breathe their own experience into it, as opposed to
I like that. It's like it's less about him. I like that.
pouring my own in. So
Not that it can't be, but you know, like it shouldn't just be his vision of WoW. It's everybody's. It's all everybody pouring a little bit of themselves into it, like a spirit bomb.
it's a balance.
I assume that's what, over time, you have a character. We'll stick with Thrall for a minute. He's, you know,
Yep.
probably the most well-known of the Chris Metzen.
Yeah, I
certainly
mean,
voice
Thrall basically is Metzen. Like,
him. So
Until they
people didn't
find
know that.
somebody better,
Until they find
yeah.
somebody better. Maybe you'll age out of it. I don't know.
I mean, he literally voices Thrall. Like, also, like he writes Thrall. Like he literally is Thrall. Thrall like gets old like he does. Like he's literally Thrall.
Getting there. But no, that you've breathed enough life into that character.
Thrall got a family when Metzen did. Like he's Thrall.
Given them enough direction over so much time that I have to think in a lot of cases they start to run on their own gas. And while I'm not asking you to tell me if there's any tragedy coming at all, we're not even suggesting it here.
I have a kill list.
Do you?
I've got like my top 12 characters. Like they're all going.
Why is Khadgar?
Top 12. Oh my God! How many characters does that kill? We could probably think of them. Either Illyria or Turalian. One of them. Fucking Thrall. Thrall's probably dead. Thrall will sacrifice himself in like Last Titan or something. Maybe if he sacrificed himself during midnight, that'd be crazy. I could see during Last Titan or something. Or he, like, dies at the end. Maybe not sacrifice, something like that. That's crazy. 12. I don't know if that's accurate. She's making a joke, but oh my god. I mean, I'd believe it. Characters have been, like, dropping like flies so far. More within, like, damn.
At the top of the list.
It's been like Game of Thrones.
I kid. I love gag.
There's no kill list.
All right, good.
There's no kill list.
But you know what I mean? You
Wink,
you
wink.
might find yourself going, well, it might be time for character X to take a character dive.
You know, so there's no, I'm kidding, there's no kill list necessarily. But we do talk about this stuff all the time.
Yeah, like, there's no kill list, but there's definitely like a time for a character to die, and there's places for characters to die. You can't just like be killing people, but Thrall dying, I don't know, because Thrall's like the fate. He's such a big character. Him dying would be crazy. He'd have to like sacrifice himself for like Azeroth in like the Last Titan at like the end. It'd have to be like the big thing. Like it'd have to be huge.
And the only, you know, when you start talking about knocking off main characters, it's not a small thing. And usually that is in service to, in the general story you're developing, if you really need to punctuate, dramatic stakes, the easiest thing to do is ask Lucas, blow up a planet, or, knock off a main character.
Right.
Tyrion Fordling, for example.
Yep, Tyrion.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
I remember that.
I'm still.
That's still that like Tyrion. See, that's a good example because Tyrion just dies in the opening of Legion. You're like, damn, like Tyrion, like this hero who fought the Lich King with us, and he just gets fucking burned in Fellfire at the beginning of Legion. It's like, damn, shit just got real. And Varian at the beginning of Legion.
Still gripping on that one.
Yeah, that was rough. No pressure though. I'm just saying it was a rough moment.
No pressure. So we do talk about it from time to time, but we try and frame it with the greatest
Sarah. This was sad. This was just straight up sad.
Gravity possible, and trying to be clear that this franchise has another 20 years in it. It's this big ongoing idea, and losing critical characters is costly. So it's we talk about it from time to time. I won't tell you we won't lose anybody over the arc of the saga. Those types of moments are all about us.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. He's like, when you lose a character, you lose like them in the story. Like you can bring him back as like a ghost and shit, but it's not the same. Like if Thrall dies, then Thrall's gone. Like you can't. We can't bring Thrall back for like the 30th anniversary in some cool moment if we kill him off for the 20th anniversary. Like shit like that. Like so it's all. You gotta think long term too. Like why Goku's died, but he's always come back. Like why? Because we can't get rid of Goku. He's Dragon Ball. Like Thrall is Warcraft, Goku's Dragon Ball. There's just certain characters that like you just can't. Why did Gandalf come back? Because he's fucking Gandalf. Like we can't kill him. He's too important and too interesting to get rid of.
Establishing stakes and that emotional, engagement from the player ultimately. So,
Does it help populate the WorldSoul saga as a creative place to know that over the last few years, while you were gone for much of it, the team has made a real effort or a priority out of having allied races discovered in the world that players can not only unlock but then be and might prefer over the originals or whatever.
That's a good point because you can like introduce races, have them be part of the story, have them. That's a whole different thing now. It's a whole different avenue. So that's a good question.
Or like this additional diversity for choice seems like a really potent way to fill your world with more interesting characterization rather than just, well, it's orcs and humans and a few others.
Yeah. I love it.
Very good point.
Just old school D&D and all these options on player expression, what kind of what culture you want to be from. I love that kind of stuff. So opening that up, especially like Battle for Azeroth and the inclusion of all these new silhouettes and flavors or whatever, I thought was awesome actually. And even the ones I didn't think I would play, I wound up
Mechanome,
Valpyra,
Yep.
Hunting of all these new silhouettes and flavors or whatever, I thought was awesome actually. And even the
I feel like Valpyra is more popular than like a lot of other races. Like people love Valpyra.
Ones I didn't think I would play, I wound up I rolled a Volpera hunter, and then I consistently dress him like Robin Hood from the old Disney movie.
That's
so
amazing.
It's like actually really dig a lot of the flavors that have been added over time. Like it's in my opinion, the water's warm. Everybody in the pool, you know, I think
Yep.
WoW can stretch and grow to.
I love that. There's it's more races. Like, just be whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Like, just more expression, more creativity. Just figure out a way to, like, include them in the world.
You know, encapsulate all of these flavors. I think giving players more options, more visual options is awesome. At the end of the day, I think erring on the side of player choice, player agency is the right move. Like why you're playing this game in the first place, right? When you imprint, especially when it's your character, when you imprint on a look or a vibe or like a vision that that you connect with, it's like go get it.
So let's bring it full circle to what is imminent, which is the war within. Players have a lot of expectations. Some of it is based on just excitement because there is a 3-part saga coming. They're not used to that. There's a whole new structure to this. So what would you say to players who are pins and needles about this next expansion, the start of the big grand story?
Basically me, like I'm hyped. Like I've never been more hyped story-wise for WoW literally ever. So
as we were talking about earlier, we've never been in a situation where we've shaped the whole giddy up, all at once. So there's the adventure component of the War Within, and then there's the max level campaign, and then there's the subsequent patches, and it's all been designed to kind of play out over time. You have narrative threads and sinews, kind of linking everything together. Personally, a little biased, but I think it's off the hook, right? At the end of the
right, like I think it's gonna be some of the craziest shit we've ever seen. Like we are not ready for what's about to happen. Not even War Within, but just the WorldSoul saga in general. Like I think it's gonna be insane, like the craziest story we've ever seen, the most epic, the most well written. Like it's just gonna be better than anything that's ever come before.
The day, I would want people to remember it is still only, however, part one of a much larger narrative. And I would want people to look at it that way. It's meant to rise and crescendo with its own max level campaign.
Will I be expected to walk in Quest 1 and yank the sword from the planet?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I would say to that, I'm glad you brought that up.
Maybe not yet.
Actually, the sword, the resolution of
the sword is definitely getting pulled out. The question is, who is pulling the sword out? Is it Azeroth? Is it like something else? Is it like a void thing? Is it some other thing? Do one of the Titans come back? Does Sargeras get unleashed and pull the sword back out? Like, there's so many options. I feel like either like Azeroth waking up and pulling it out of herself would be kind of weird. I feel like something would take the sword and like corrupt it or something and be like, oh no, like a double oh no. Like you think you're saved and then it's like, oh no. But then maybe that gets saved. Maybe like whatever pulls the sword out immediately corrupt, like a void thing maybe takes it, pulls it out, and like fights like a light thing in space and like it shatters or whatever. Like so it's like oh no right away, but it gets fixed right away. Tough to say, but let's see what Metzen says.
the sword that we started with at BlizzCon. Actually, that's a 13 thing. We're gonna build.
Yeah, that's why I imagine that's like a third. That's later on. That's a 13 thing. Okay, so that'll be in Last Titan. So will Azeroth wake up and pull the sword out? That's like what I've always thought would happen. Like she'll wake up and be like shoo-boo, and then like it'll change and be like her sword or something.
To that, and it's a doozy.
It's a doozy.
It's not simply yank a sword from Azeroth.
I would even say you are not prepared for that moment. And
We are not. You are not. Is Illidan gonna like take over Sargeras' body or like claim Sargeras' power as a Titan and fucking pull out the sword? Because he loves Illidan.
leave it at that. But it is a 13 issue.
I mean, it's got to be Illidan. Illidan's got to come back. And will it be him and Sargeras buddy-buddy, or will Illidan have, like, claimed Sargeras' power and become a Titan himself or something? Interesting. I keep pausing on the best screens.
Ultimately, things like Zalatathi, we've been doing a lot of work to kind of build her up as a very different kind of villain. She is not like a Deathwing type, villain where, he's flying and burning everything and like, oh crap, we're gonna, like clearly.
Like she has like a motive and a
where
plan.
the storyline ends. She's built in such a way that like we're gonna be confronted by her and face her multiple times over the arc of the saga. So it's not going to be this, one and done type like, oh, she's the raid boss. She's meant to, kind of weave in and out of events over time. So that's something I would say. But definitely the sword thing sticks in my head. Like certain of these themes are built to play out over time.
Yeah, like can't ignore the sword. That's so interesting though. Obviously, says you are not prepared for that moment. So we got to see Milden's involved. Will he come and pull the sword out then to fight whatever's coming? Interesting. Maybe like maybe in Midnight if the planet like falls to corruption or something, Odin like yoinks the sword out and is like, I'll do it myself, like a Thanos thing.
So I hope people are into that. I hope they're into a longer form engagement, because in a way so many of our expectations kind of crystallize around like, well, wait a minute, I didn't get the full meal I was expecting in 11.0. It's not built to be that. It's built to be part 1. So buckle up. The ride will be, I hope,
buckle up,
insane and insanely fulfilling.
Yes, that's why I'm saying it's gonna be fucking wild. Like, I'm so hyped. I feel like before the WorldSoul Saga came out, like just the general vision of it is what I wanted for like the next thing in WoW. Like, so I feel I feel like I'm on a similar wavelength as Metzen right now, like in terms of like the shaping of the story.
Going back to that promise of the 20th anniversary of World of Warcraft, like, I want this saga to feel like it is just the perfect crescendo of 20 years of storytelling.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, it has to pay off 20 years, like a full. It has to pay off everything. I want to find. Can I find my Discord post? I don't know if it's easy to show, but
yeah, there is a sense.
I'll have to find it because, like I said basically that where it's like it's gonna pay honor to like the 20 years of WoW. I didn't anticipate so much the WorldSoul Saga. I just thought like the next expansion would be like basically like all parts of the WorldSoul Saga, basically like just in one, like just the whole thing, like basically like the saga just like all at once.
Patients kind of crystallize around like, well, wait a minute, I didn't get the full meal I was buckle up. The ride will be, I hope, insane and insanely fulfilling. Going back to that promise of the 20th anniversary of World of Warcraft, like, I want this saga to feel like it is just the perfect crescendo of 20 years of storytelling, as we said at BlizzCon.
Yeah, there is a sense that we are fulfilling something. The 20 years came and will end this November. I guess November's launch, right? Yeah, 20-year anniversary will be this November. Yeah. And there is a
wow. This November, 20 years.
Feeling, I can tell you from the player side, of really coming to something special.
Yes, like you can feel it, like.
And I know that puts pressure on the team when players collectively have an idea that they think should happen, and then the team's like, well, we're kind of going a different way. But I don't know that I've felt this much positive feedback in a long time about just where things are headed. And nobody says that about a 20-year-old property usually. Usually we're like,
there's not a lot of precedent we have, right? Like that's the same contiguous project. There's plenty of game series run for 20 years, no question. But like, it is honestly a blessing and often sometimes a hindrance. Just trying to sift through the sheer volume of all of these details. Poor Sean Copeland, right? Just trying to keep it all, make it all make sense. But it is also its principal strength. you know, particularly
Yep.
because it's an MMO and a video game, because you've lived these moments.
Yes.
You didn't just passively watch. You didn't just, you know.
It's not like
Read a
it's
book
not
or
like
watch-
a movie you see like, oh, you watch for 2 hours. Like, we have played WoW. We have lived in this world for 20 years. People played as Arthas in Warcraft 3, saw him become the Lich King, bought WoW at launch, played WoW, fought Ragnaros, fought Illidan at the top of the Black Temple, and then fought Arthas on top of Iceground Citadel. Like, you can't, that's not the same as watching just like a movie or like reading a book. That's like, we have lived these moments, and it's like, it's not just these singular moments. It's, we played the game, you have leveled, you've been with your guild, you've raided with, you've met people, you have lived this entire experience through all these years and different versions of the game. And it is all like culminating in like a one massive like huge story event. Like, it's just, it's so insane, and it pays off 20 years of people's love for the world, of love for the game, them living these moments. It's just so, it's crazy to think about. Like, it's just, it's wild.
These moments. You didn't just passively watch. You didn't just, you know, read a book or watch a movie.
Literally, yeah. You didn't just, you sit there like experience it. You lived it. You played the game. You read the quests. You did the quests.
You've lived these moments, and they matter, and there are stakes. You know, so as
These might be
complex as
some
it
of your favorite moments in a video game. Like, WoW might be your favorite game. It's probably mine. It's the one I've played the most. Like, it's just, he gets it. Like, he just straight up gets it.
is to try and push the world forward without breaking everything that came before, which is its own kind of challenge. It's a very noble challenge, right? It's a privilege to tread water in this complexity of this setting. After all of these years, it's amazing that it's still the same stakes. It's still the same world that you've always
Well,
known.
there's a future I see where you're, you know, reclining in some sort of chair,
With the blanket over my
blanket
knees,
over your
sitting by a
knees,
fire,
keeping you warm, and you're looking back and you're thinking,
telling kids to stay off my
wow.
lawn. I
Yeah,
know, I
exactly.
know.
And they're all in their haptic suits playing whatever version of WoW they have, and and looking back at Grandpa's accomplishments, and I think it looks like something to be pretty proud of already. Well, I, for
Yep.
one, could not be more excited about this
Yep.
next expansion and the entirety of the WorldSoul Saga, and I think you and your team should be proud, and I wish you
I'm so excited.
guys nothing but luck in the next
Yes.
few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much, Scott. It was good fun.
That was hard on.
That was awesome. Yeah, I think people are not ready. People are straight up not ready.
We are.
Will I be expected to walk in Quest 1 and yank the sword from the planet?
Oh, interesting. That's an interesting one.
Especially for
I
this
would say
bit right
that-
here.
I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, the sword, the resolution of the sword that we started with at BlizzCon, actually, that's a 13 thing. We're going to build to that, and it's a
doozy.
One
I
does
will-
not simply yank a sword from Azeroth.
I would even say
you are not prepared for that moment.
Who said, like, come on. Who says you are not prepared? That Illidan is coming back 13-0. He's going to yank the sword out with Sargeras. They're going to be buddy cops fighting the Void Lords. It's going to be wild. Like, that's what I agree when he says, like, it's going to be insane, and like, we're not ready. We are not ready.
with the blanket over my
Blanket
knees.
over your
sitting
knee,
by-
and I think you and your team should be proud, and I wish you guys nothing but luck in the next few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much, Scott. It was good fun.
I love that look between them at the end. That's so funny. But no, that was a good interview. I like that. I'm a fan of that interview. Yeah, but I think I think the WorldSoul Saga is going to be amazing. I don't think we're ready for how great it's gonna be. I think it'll be the most epic shit we've ever seen in WoW and a lot of games, and it's gonna be wild. So yeah, if you are excited for WoW's lore and story coming up with the WorldSoul Saga, feel free to let me know, because I'm hyped about it too. So if you like this, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.